Welcome CSC 102 to WD06. This is part 5, which is going to be our Windows version of using Word to work on our research paper. We're still going to use EasyBib. I'm doing this on a MacBook on a Windows partition, so it's going to be a little slow. So if I start yelling and things like that, it's just because things are moving slow. But this should be quicker than actually using the Word tools. But we're going to get started here. We're in Documents and Resources. We have instructions, which are set up here that we can look at the instructions. It's a PDF file. We also have a sample that we looked at earlier in an earlier video as far as our formatting, which we'll do first. And then I also have EasyBib, which I am signing into, and I'll sign up for that. And then we're going to use EasyBib to make our bibliography or our Works Cited pages, and then also put our in-text citations. So I'll sign into here for a second to get that set up. If you've ever used this, I'm not crazy about it because there's a lot of ads and it works slow and all kinds of things like that, but it's free, and it seems to be a little more accurate than the Word tools. Now, you don't have to create an account, but I thought it might be easier to create an account. I don't know if I do have an account, so I guess at least it'll save kind of these projects for me, which are a list of bibliographies that are in there. So I had set up one, like kind of a blank one, so I think that's what I'm going to go to next. I'm going to go back to my Documents and Resources, and I just want to point out too, again, this is the authority at Warren for your MLA 8 that you want to use. Now, I'm also going to download a file to work on. I put the work file in here just so you wouldn't have to go through assignments, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to right-click on this and choose Save Link As, and then I do have a Word folder set up in here. And I'm just going to change the name and put my last name in here, just like we do in class or like you've been doing on the online assignments. I'm just going to put my last name, first initial in here, and save it. And then open it up. And this will have some text in that you're already going to work on. And you're just going to format, and then we'll just kind of put in our citations and our works cited information from our paper. So hopefully it won't take too long. So here's my file in Word. And what we're going to do first is go to Layout and change the margins. And they would just be normal margins, 1 inch all around. And then I'm going to click in here and do a Control-A, highlight everything, and go back to my Home tab, and just change the font and the size to Times New Roman, because that would be for MLA, and make sure it's 12 point. And one thing you can do when everything's highlighted is everything's going to be double spaced. So you could go here to line spacing, and you can do 2.0, and everything will be double spaced. And you can also do this. There's different ways you can do this, but if you grab this little arrow up here, the top one, and just move that over a ½ inch, while everything's highlighted, that will make everything have a first line indent. The entire paper all the way down, because if you did Control-A, everything was highlighted. So all the way down, everything has a first line indent, and that's fine, except we have to take it off just the first part. So then what I'll do is I'll just click in my title here. That's going to be centered, and I'm going to make sure that I put that back. And again, whatever order you do this in is okay, but just make sure that there's not a first line indent on the title. And then for these 4 lines here, we're also going to take away the first line indent, because they're all separate paragraphs. That's why it's moving it over. And I should put this on so we could see our paragraph markers there. All right, and what we can do down here. So again, we put everything with a first line indent because all our paragraphs should have that. We turned them off the top 5 lines here because they should not have a first line indent, but our title should be centered. And what I'll do here is I'll wipe out this stuff and do insert today's date. You could certainly type it in. And what you could do here is highlight this and replace this. I'm going to make sure I don't highlight the return, and I'm going to insert today's date, get rid of that little bracket there. So that's getting replaced. So I'm going to go to Insert, and then I'll use this date and time. It's a real tiny thing over here, so I'll select that, and I'll choose March 19th. I'll choose that format, the month, the date, and the year, and I'll put that in there. You could certainly type it in too. And then I'm going to put my name up here. I'll highlight over this. I'll call myself Steve Smith for the sake of this paper. So I have that set up. So that's set up correctly. And then I want to insert a header. So I want to go Insert, and you could do this anyway, or you could try to double click up here. And I'm going to insert a page number and then put my last name in there. So I'm going to go to page number, and I'll just say top of page. And just put a plain number at the top of page. And I also would want to do this. I'd also want to highlight it and go back to my home tab and just make sure it's in Times New Roman, because you can see it's in Cambria right now. Most people may not notice, but keep it consistent, and it's 12-point Times New Roman, and I'm going to align it to the right. And then what you could do is you could try to use your arrow and get on the other side of this, and then see if you could type your last name. Make sure it doesn't wipe out the page number. So I'll just put Smith, because that's my last name on here, and I'll just hit a space, and that way it'll say Smith 1. So it should be your last name, and the page number should be on every page. So if I scroll down here, I'll see that there's Smith 2 and so on. So that's okay. That's working fine. That's all you should need for your header. So that's the end of that part. So everything's formatted okay right now. That's all you need for formatting. That's formatted in MLA8. And now to get out of the header, just double click. And that's all you need to do there. And what we're going to do now is just worry about our bibliography. Now this may be a little more painful, so I'm going to go back to EasyBib. Now I created a project here because I am signing in. So I'm going to click on this project, and it should allow me to create a new citation. Now I'm in MLA8. Make sure that you're in MLA8 when you do this. Now this is going to run real slow because there's all these ads all over the place. So I'm going to make sure that my style here is MLA8, which it should be already. Just make sure you have MLA8 chosen, and it is checked because I can see it's checked on there. So I'm going to create a new citation, and it's going to be a website. And then I'm just going to put in the URL. Now where you're going to get that URL is if you go back to your instructions and go to the second page, and I'll do these just in the order that they're here. Now this is a PDF, so I'm going to right click on this so it opens up in a new tab, because right now I think it's going to wipe out this page if I just click on it. So I'll make sure I right click on it and open in a new tab. It's going to open up the review that's part of the research paper. So I just want to click on it, and all I need, I don't need to read the article because it's opening up really slow here. All I need to do here is just copy the URL. I'm going to click on here and do a Control-C, and then I'm going to go back to EasyBib and paste it in here, and do a Control-V and just do a search. And what it should do is go to that website and find all the information so you don't have to create it all. In Word, if you use the Word tools, you have to find all that stuff in there and then put it in, fill out this almost like form kind of thing. This will do it for you. So in some ways it's easier, even though we have to wade through all these ads and all this kind of stuff here. So there it is, and just keep following through. Just when it comes up here, just hit Cite, and then we'll hit Continue. It looks like it found the information, and this is the one with Thomas Bolt, and I'll say Complete Citation, and there it is. That's it. Now, that's the way it's going to appear in our Works Cited page. Now, if you copy these things, if you hover over these, they may try to get you to sign up for something. So I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. And then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to just do another one. So I'll go back up here and create a second one, and they'll all get added here. So I'll create a new citation. And it's a website, so I'm going to copy the URL. So I'm going to go back to my instructions, and I'm going to copy the second one. And I'll just right click and open that in a new tab. So I could just copy the address up at the top. So I'm going to click in here, do a Control-C, copy the URL, go back to EasyBib, and I'll paste it in there, and I'll hit search, and I'll choose Cite, and I'll choose Continue, and then I'll choose Complete Citation. I'll view a sponsored message once every 48 hours if I want this for free. Yes, this is very annoying. And here are my two citations, and I just have one more to go. And I'll just go back to my instructions, and it's the one on the bottom. So I'll just open that up and copy that. Like I said, if you could copy it off of here, that's fine, but it seems to give you a hard time. So that's why I'm opening it up in a new tab. So I'm going to copy the URL, Control-C, and I don't need to do anything else with this. I'll close this up, and I'll go back to EasyBib. And you can see it does say MLA8, and I'll create a new citation. This will be my last. We're only going to have 3. And again, it's a website, and I'll paste it in here. And I'll choose Cite, Continue, choose Complete Citation. And now I have my 3 citations. This is actually what your bibliography is going to look like. And what you can do, if you have an account here, you can export as a Word file. And I tried it as a Google Docs file. I had a problem with it. It never got there. And I'm going to make a Microsoft Word file. and hit export, and you should be able to put that right in your paper, whatever it generates. It worked fine on the Mac version that I was using. I see it down in my downloads. I'm going to X out of that, and I'll open it up, and here it is. And I don't have to do anything with it other than just copy this stuff. And what I'll do is scroll down to the end of this paper, and I'm going to insert a page break in here. So right about here. So everything is blue here, so I'm just going to delete it. And I'm going to insert a page break. Now in Word, to insert a page break, you can go to Insert, and they have page break over here. And that just means it'll jump to a new page. Now, when you have your formatting marks on, you'll see a page break. So there's a page break right there. So if you ever need to get rid of it, you can highlight it. You can go over here and like highlight it and get rid of it if you need to. But we're going to keep it in there. That just makes it jump to a new page. So don't be hitting extra returns to get to the new page. And what I'll do here is I'll paste it. Now, it's showing a first line indent right now, so I'm going to get rid of that before I even paste it. I'll just move this thing back over. And then I'll do a paste, a Control V. Now I can paste that in, and everything looks okay. It has a hanging indent. If you notice, if you look at the ruler up here, it has that second arrow down at the bottom, which creates the hanging indent. So it's kind of the opposite of what we did with the first line indent. And it's treating the italics okay. And there's quotes around the titles. Everything looks okay here. You shouldn't have to do anything else. Just make sure there's no extra space. So if you highlight through here, just make sure if you go to your Home tab and just check out paragraph settings, just make sure there's no space after or anything like that. These should be set at 0. And it's not saying double spacing, but it should be. It shouldn't change anything. Now there's an extra, it looks like there's an extra return in there. Kind of get rid of. You don't need an extra return. Make sure Works Cited is centered, and everything looks okay now. And it's in the right font, Times New Roman. And all we're going to do is put 3 in-text citations. So this is your Works Cited. You're done with this. We're just going to put bolt, car, and Java review where they need to be. And you're just going to replace the blue stuff with these. So that's pretty easy. And here's one. Here's Java review. Well, I'll start up here with bolt. I'm going to highlight this Thomas Bolt stuff. Sometimes it's hard to get in here and get the right stuff. Sometimes it's hard to get in here. I'm just going to delete this. And I'll put my quotes back because it took out my quote, and a space, and then I'll just put bolt in parentheses, B-O-L-D-T, I believe, and I'll just leave it like that. And I could even copy bolt, and I'll zoom in a little, and I'll put bolt down here as well. And I just have to go here to my text and just make sure it's black. And then I only have, I think, 2 more. And I'll highlight Java review. Actually, it's just going to say Java review, so I'm going to leave it in there and just make sure I have my parentheses. And again, your citation should be before the period. I'll make that black. And then down here, this will just say car. So I'll just replace this, parentheses, C-A-R-R, and make sure there's a period after the in-text citation. And wherever else you need to put citations of something that you referenced, you could put them in. Now, one last thing I'm going to check on here. I didn't do this yet. But one last thing you're going to do on here, because the library wants us to do this. So after the period here, you're just going to say accessed, and then the date, which is going to be 19 Mar, 3 letters abbreviating the month, and then a space, and then the year, the full year, and then another period. Now, if this comes up like a hyperlink, if you right-click on that, it's telling me to make a selection first. This is kind of odd, but I'll see what it does. I'll control-click on here again. Typically, you could just right-click on there and change the link, but what I'll do with this is click in here and say remove link. So that goes away. I'm not sure why it wouldn't let me right click and remove the hyperlink, but that took it away. And then what I'll do down here, I'll click after the period, do a space, and do accessed again, another period, and then I'm going to highlight this and copy it, and I'll put it after the other period. I'll put a space and I'll paste it, and that's the way that should look. So everything here is good. So we have our Works Cited page done correctly, because EasyBib does do a good job of that, even though it's very annoying being on their website. And we now have our in-text citations, not inside the quote, outside the quote with a period. And then that's all you have to do. And then you should just be able to save this, and you should be able to just save this and then upload it the way you normally would Whether you're in the online class or whether you were in the on-site class, you would do it the same way. You're going to go to your assignments, coursework, and you're going to upload from there. And I'm not going to go through doing that again, but that's all you have to do for this one. So this was our last part of our research paper. I have versions for Mac, for Google Docs, and finally one here for Windows, which was a little more painful because it just took a long time to go through EasyBib. So that was instead of using the tools that are here under references, and even though that was a little annoying going through EasyBib, I think it's a little easier, and I think it actually is more accurate the way we're doing it, and we're following what the library suggests. So that's our WD06 for Spring 2020, our research paper using EasyBib.